Welcome to the Consulting Kingdom, the ultimate podcast for business consultants who are ready to master their craft and make a meaningful impact as a kingdom business. Hosted by Patrick Bell, this podcast dives into powerful strategies and actionable insights that will help you grow in your consulting expertise. Through expert interviews, the Consulting Kingdom pulls from our guests their advice and equips you with the tools and knowledge and heart direction necessary to drive extraordinary results for your clients and your business. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media for exclusive content and updates. Now, get ready to unlock your consulting potential with the Consulting Kingdom.
Well, we're here today to gain insight from some of the industry's most notable leaders. Today, we're talking with Judge Jamie Groshans. Justice Groshans was raised in Brookhaven, Mississippi, and graduated cum laude from the University of Mississippi Law School. During law school, she clerked for the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., and the United States Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Mississippi. Following admittance to the Florida bar, she served as the Assistant State Attorney for the Ninth Circuit of Florida in both the misdemeanor and felony divisions and tried numerous criminal jury trials. Justice Groshans later entered private practice and founded her own law firm and focused on family law, criminal defense for nearly 10 years. During this time, she also served, interestingly, as an adjunct professor at Valencia College, where she taught hospitality law for the Hospitality and Tourism Management Program. Very interesting. So Justice Jamie R. Groshans was appointed to the Florida Supreme Court on September 2020 by Governor Ron DeSantis. Previously, she was appointed to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal in 2018 by Governor Rick Scott. Prior to that, to the appellate court, she served as an Orange County court judge in the Ninth Judicial Circuit of Florida, and she presided over criminal trials and civil matters. So, Justice Groshans, welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're so grateful for your time, etc.
Of course.
So you've had an amazing and hugely successful career. How did you get started on a path to law school from Brookhaven, Mississippi?
Well, it was a lot of wrong turns along the way, I would say. But until I went to law school, I had never met a female attorney. There were none practicing in Brookhaven when I was growing up there. I had certainly never met a female judge. Professor, you are familiar with Brookhaven. There's pretty much one judge that covers about 4 counties. And so it was a very different world. And it really was one of those things I was looking to, what I wanted to do post-college. It was kind of a difficult time in the market and things like that. And I was considering, I had done a little bit of work and just trying to figure out what was next. And I decided I was going to go in the civil service. And I wanted to work for embassies overseas with the government and do all that. And so I was looking at that and they said, we really accept people, prefer people that have a law degree. And I thought, well, I guess I'll get a law degree. And so I did that. And so I went to Ole Miss and started that path. Turns out, never even applied to the civil service. So life took a completely different turn for me. But that's how I got there. And there you go. So not an ambassador yet, but there's still maybe in the future. We're working on that.
Hey, you don't know what's around the corner, right?
Exactly.
All right. Well, how did you become an adjunct professor in tourism law? What led you to that?
Well, it had actually happened pretty early in my career. I had practiced a little bit. I was maybe a 2-year attorney when I met the dean at Valencia in charge of the hospitality program. And I'm sure, as many of you know, because I think you guys are from all over, the hospitality industry in Orlando is the number one thing around here. So yes,
It's the Super Bowl of
it
tourism and
is.
hospitality.
And so, I'm coming from Mississippi, which I don't know if you guys know, this isn't the number one tourist capital of the world. And so I didn't really ever think about all of the things that went into hospitality. But this dean said, hey, we really like to have a lawyer teach a class, just an overview of how the law relates to the hospitality industry. And I said, I think I might like to do that. And it let me teach for the first time ever. I had never taught before, really, in that kind of environment, and I really wanted to try it. And so I did, and I ended up teaching that class, I believe, 8 years. I had three babies teaching that class. That's how I can remember.
Oh.
So I remember taking the babies to the class 3 times. And so, I taught that 3 semesters. Sometimes I taught it two classes in one semester because it was a popular course. It was not required, but it was highly encouraged for their major. And I think I got a reputation as being someone who prepped you well for your tests. So it was a good class to take.
Plus, I bet it was very interesting, and that's always the mark of it.
I tried to make it interesting and and talk about all the different things, but you never think about how much of law interacts with this industry, whether it's negligence or contract law or an employment law or all those type of things. And so we talked a lot about the interplay in that, and it was a great experience. I must say.
That sounds fabulous. And I wrote on negotiations and agreements, and that certainly relates to it. And we were talking the story of Euro Disney. And from my perspective, because I was there in those days,
right.
and we tried to impose an American style of negotiating and agreements with a European model that went against 180 years of the travel industry. And Euro Disney crashed. So it's a fascinating study sometimes. So I appreciate your perspective on that. So let's talk about leadership, because that's a big deal. My MBA at Belhaven was a concentration in leadership as well. You've worked for and seen a lot of excellent leaders over the years. What are some of the qualities and attributes that you've admired most and tried to emulate?
I think, and I have had the opportunity.
You don't have to name names.
No, I want
if you don't want to.
I want to name names, but I'll give attributes. And this is what I think is the best thing about leadership is a lot of times when you think leadership, you think on such a big scale, right? You're running a Fortune 500 company. You're running a state. A country, those type of leadership things, which are wonderful. But a lot of us don't get that scale of opportunity, but instead what we get is an opportunity to lead where we've been placed, wherever that might be. Yeah. And so I am so grateful for the people in my life who led where they were, whether they were leading by example or leading by mentorship or by instruction, however that might be. I just always really appreciate those people who take those qualities just as seriously, leading something small as something that people might think is a big deal. And so some of the qualities that I have always admired, first of all, and above all, is integrity, the ability to stand by your word, to say things that are truthful, even when they hurt your own interests. That's a big thing in law, is that sometimes, clients wish for you to say things that may not need to, or represent things. And I always say clients come and go, but your reputation is with you forever. It's the same thing in your industry. Your reputation will follow you for years, much farther past the current job you have. And so that's one quality, just that integrity, a commitment to being a truthful person, a person of your word, a person who does the things that is required, whether it's showing up on time or getting a project done when it's required. All of those type things are things of leadership. I think another big thing is humility. That is such an important characteristic of someone in leadership. A lot of people think, that judges, for instance, they might have a lot of power or think they control a lot. And in reality, a judge is there to serve the people. I mean, that is our actual job, public servants of the state to the people of the state. And people who really have that mentality of servant leadership, who understand that, you are there to make your company successful, or your project successful, or the people that work with you successful. I think those are the people that really have stood out to me as excellent leaders in their field. So those are a couple of things that I can think of that might.
Oh, that's fabulous. That hits it on the mark. And I really like what you said about, it follows you. Your reputation is what you have, and that's who you are, and the character counts. So
Always.
Awesome. That was really, really good. Don't know if you'd really be willing to share this, because it might be good, it might be a little tough, but was there a crisis point in your career or a challenge you faced? Because, we all can tell our story, and I can give you two versions. I can tell you the one of, all of my successes, which I did at the beginning and all the stuff. And you said, oh, wow, you've had a great career from Macomb, Mississippi to, to Disney, to Universal. Right. So that's great. I could tell you the other side of.
There's always the other side.
The other side. So can you share a crisis point or a career challenge you faced, how you faced it, and if you're willing, tell us the outcome.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, anytime you practice law, you have the difficult times. Anytime you work hard for something and it doesn't pan out, that's one of the hardest things when you've really tried. And it doesn't happen. There was a time, we always kind of laugh about this one. So this has a funny side of it too.
Okay.
When, I went to law school and I had these big dreams, and then, I ended up taking a different career path. I ended up in Orlando and I had a great job. And then I ended up, in a job that it just was not the right fit for me. And I thought it was going to be great. And that's the worst part, when you think you have a plan and then it's not at all the plan. And that is exactly what happened. And it just turned it, it was not a good situation for anyone. I ended up leaving the job, and it was, of course, during the recession, like the worst time. There was a government freeze. Like, you couldn't even get hired by the government in Florida. It was a terrible timing. And I just remember thinking, what is next for me? And I really gave up on the inside. I looked into all sorts of non-legal jobs, and I applied to manage the Pottery Barn.
Well, you get discounts. Come on.
I wanted
the
discounts.
Job.
I loved interior design. I was like, you know what? Forget law. This is I don't want to do this. And it would turn out in this case, it was my husband, who also a lawyer, and said, Jamie, I really think that you wouldn't have made it this far in life doing all of these things, and everything has been so clear that this was the path that you were on, for you to maybe take this huge change right now. What he didn't say is, and you still have to pay off those student loans. But he really said, I think, and that it was just kind of that moment of him saying, I think, this is, even though it's tough, and even though you're in this sort of situation that there doesn't seem to be a bright side right now, stick with it. I think there's something out there. And there was, I ended up starting my own firm. I would never, ever have been brave enough to do that had it not been, for this just moment where it seemed like maybe there weren't any other options. And so I did that. It turned out I love doing that. It let me have, at a time in my life where I needed more flexibility, I needed to be able to focus on, different things. And I was having 3 babies. And so there was a lot of things going on, and it turned out to be exactly what I needed. It taught me so much. And then as the career went on and I was appointed to be a judge, I've been able to really benefit from that. And I really, appreciate that on so many levels, that encouragement. And I got to thank him in my investiture speech for the Florida Supreme Court, in front of everybody. Get to say, thanks for talking me out of that Pottery Barn job. I think it's worked out for us.
Well, it was Pottery Barn's loss. That's what I wanted to say. That's awesome. That's great. So, current role, oh my gosh, Supreme Court Justice, and, up this election season and all the rest, and you're in the middle of the whole turmoil of all that. Describe your current role as a Supreme Court Justice. What are the most important things that you focus on?
A lot of people don't understand the Supreme Court in Florida. So I like to give a little overview. First is that, a lot of, I'm not a trial judge anymore. So it's not like what you see on TV. That's the fun part. I got to do that. But there's no juries, there's no witnesses. It's not that kind of job. And then there's the intermediate appellate court, which I was on. For me, it was for Central Florida, and that handles a lot of what you would consider appeals. Just kind of the basic case load. But the Florida Supreme Court has kind of a limited jurisdiction. We don't actually hear everything. There's certain things we can hear and we can't hear per the Constitution. And so that makes it a little bit different. There are only 7 of us. We make all decisions as a group of 7. So if you want to talk about negotiation and working with people, imagine making big decisions in a group of 7 people. And you can imagine with fairly big egos, because we're all where we are. So there's a huge learning curve there. Right. From, mostly making independent decisions. And then what a lot of people don't understand, so that's the cases, right? And that's what you see and you read. It's a huge part of our job. It's clearly, vitally important. But what a lot of people don't realize is the justices are also responsible for running a branch of government. This is the part that doesn't get talked about as much, but turns out takes up a ton of my time, is that we run the judicial branch. So there are 3 branches of government. We are in charge of one of them. We have a state agency. It's one of the largest. It employs almost 200 people. And everything from how we certify court interpreters to how much money and for what we are asking the legislature for in the budget every year, to lawyer regulation, to the rules of criminal and civil procedure. Everything eventually comes through the 7 of us. And it's a huge, part of our job, and an important part of our job, because we are in charge of every lawyer, we are in charge of every judge, we are in charge of every court in the state. And there's a lot that plays into that. Fortunately, we have amazing people that help in this role.
Right.
I don't have to do it by myself, but
I had no idea that the 7 of you had such an administrative position as well over those 200 people and all the different moving parts that go into that. Nobody would ever realize that. Just a sidebar question real quick. Does the Supreme Court of the United States have to do administration and oversee districts, or not at all? But it's just state.
Well, they have some responsibility, but it's a little bit different because they're it's the federal government. And so they're more, so yes, I do believe that they have administrative duties as it relates to the circuit and district courts. But they are very different, I believe, in how they handle it. And, it's a different model.
The state level is sounds like a lot more intensive. The way you described,
right. And there's I had learned things that I didn't know. I didn't know about as much working with the legislature. What does that look like? What does lobbying look like? Not something I had done before. Fortunately, I don't have to do that yet, but I'm still involved in a lot of that stuff. And what does it look like to figure out? We have right now some hiring issues because of the way things have happened post-COVID, and we can't get court reporters, and that's a real big part of a trial court. And how do we handle that? And what are some strategies? And what are we looking forward to? So those are a little bit part of the thing, but it's a lot.
Well, that's a lot to focus on. A friend of mine and I at Disney used to look at each other because there was so much on the plate, and we just go, we focus on everything, which is kind of a bit of an oxymoron.
Very appropriate, yes.
Right. So, people are entering into hospitality. They're taking the degree program. They're looking for a career path, or they're just graduating. They might not have considered tourism law or other things, but it's still some of the skills, attributes, or talents. What would you advise someone to focus on and develop early in their career that kind of prepares them for a greater leadership role in hospitality or hospitality law?
2 things: work ethic. No one becomes a leader. Well, I'm not going to say that. The best way to become a leader, we'll go that way, is hard work. And you will separate yourself out from the people that work with you by having a work ethic. Someone that not only does what you're told, but looks for ways to do more, to help, to volunteer, to take that extra shift when they need it. All of those things really follow you far in life. The other thing I would say is excellence in what you do. Learning your craft, your area, your specialty, the best you can, knowing the ins and outs, being the person that when someone has a question, they say, I'm going to call her. I'm going to call him. That is like to me, the best way that you can separate is just excellence in what you do. And then doing a lot of it. I think really are two attributes that I can think of that really help. I mean, it's certainly in my world, although a little bit different in law, but when I'm hiring clerks to work with me, if I'm looking at lawyers, or if we're looking at lawyers to run committees or work groups or judges, we're always looking for those people that have, really shown themselves to go above and beyond and who do excellent work when they do it. I mean, those are the things that we're always looking for.
Oh, that is fabulous. That makes so much great sense. And, I teach students and still in the consulting and coaching that I do, that leadership isn't about creating followers. It's about creating other leaders.
Right.
Right.
So
At whatever level, as you said really wisely in the beginning, you can lead in your area. To be a leader doesn't mean you have to have a title or at the top or expect somebody else to do it. You can lead from any position. It doesn't require your IQ. It doesn't have to do with your education or things. You can step up and you can lead with the attributes you just described at anywhere. So that's just really encouraging. So especially to people, that came from Macomb like me. So,
or Brookhaven.
Right.
For those of you who aren't familiar with Mississippi geography, which I suspect is all of you, they're very close by. They're neighbors.
Yeah, we're about 18 miles away, but in Mississippi, we have a love for it. If you live there and you did it, you love some of the things about it, and we certainly all know the troubles and trials and things that went on. But
I say it's part of your blood, though. Once you've lived there, it's just part of who you are. You can't. There's a sense of place there that stays with you forever. But
and the relationships
Florida,
with the people. Yeah, I know. I wouldn't leave Florida, but my two kiddos who are now in their mid-30s were born in Macomb. One of them lives in New Zealand as a producer, married to a director. And the other one is here in the States still. But yeah, so you just can't, you love the people. And I went back for 100-year anniversary of the Presbyterian church where I worked for and saw people from, it was fabulous. There was hundreds. It was great history.
I love that.
So we love it. But last question, just want to ask, what part of your career or accomplishment or whatever really it provided fulfillment for you personally? I love the work balance part of you at the right time in the right place when you're having your kids and you could be flex. But what brought you fulfillment for you personally?
I think, that's a great question because I actually have loved all my jobs. I'm just very lucky at that. I really have. Especially as a judge, being able to serve, when I kind of started this journey, it was very much, had never thought about being a judge. I mean, you didn't go to law school to think about that. I didn't think about that. Even when I was as a prosecutor, I didn't really say, I might like to be a judge someday. And it was maybe 5 years into my career, I heard a judge at an event speaking. And he really encouraged people to think about this life of public service, what that would mean. And then he said this is a great, I will never forget. He's like, think of the worst judge you'll be better than them. Like, I can be that.
Great.
And so, that was really, I think I looked, my husband and I said, I think I might like to do that someday. And in my mind, it was years and years away. And so, but I started then thinking, okay, if I'm going to be a judge, what kind of things do I need to know? And my first one was I need to know what I think about what a judge is supposed to do. So for me, that meant, what is my philosophy of judging? What do I think the role of a judge is? There were a lot of things that, kind of were part of that. The second thing was kind of going back to that excellence. I wanted to be the best lawyer I could be, so that when people called the judges I was in front of to say, what do you think about Jamie Groshans for this job or this, appointment, that they would be able to say, yes, when she comes in, she's prepared, she knows the law, those type of things. That was very important to me. And so I kind of went through that, and was able to get the appointment to the county court role back in 2017. And that really was such a huge moment for me. It was a complete career shift, of course, into this life of being a judge. No one really can tell you or prep you for that. It's a very different feeling. I remember the first time I walked in a courtroom, all rise, and you sit at the bench, and just the weight of the responsibility is there. But I do think that job, being county court judge, was probably just so fulfilling for me, because that, for those of you who don't know, that's the people's court, right? That's the misdemeanor criminal, everything from DUIs to petty theft to driving while your license is suspended. So kind of the misdemeanor level of crimes, and then small civil matters. But that is a lot of people's only interaction with the court ever, is when they come in and see a county court judge. And, sometimes I had 100 people in my courtroom at one time, and trying to manage that and learn to be very patient. A lot of people don't speak English as their first language. So learning to work with, a Cantonese interpreter on the phone while you're trying to explain, what it means to give a plea. To somebody. I mean, these are all things that I learned and experienced that so prepared me. I'm the only person on the Florida Supreme Court that was a county court judge. And so I'm the only person on the Florida Supreme Court that owned my own law firm. I have some very unique perspectives that I now bring to this job. But I truly think that might have been kind of the most fulfilling, was that first judicial role, and one that really understood the impact that the legal system has on the average American, and what that looked like. And so,
wow,
that would be my answer.
Yeah, that's fabulous. And just as you talked about serving well, you serve really mostly part of just middle America, people, ordinary folks, that they get caught up or make mistakes and do stuff, and it's your job to uphold the law, but also to encourage and help them to move forward and do, because that's what your service is all about. And I know it was probably a big moment too when Governor DeSantis appointed you to the Supreme Court, which is,
that was a big day. That was a big day,
because there's only 7 people that get to be there. I'm just saying.
Yes, I am the 91st in the history of Florida, so we have not even hit 100 justices yet in the whole history of Florida, and I am the 5th woman to serve in this role. So it was, that's a huge day. This job is very fulfilling. Don't tell Governor DeSantis that county court was great too, though.
Okay, yeah, we don't want any moving back there, but
no.
Grateful for your service and all that, and I'm extremely grateful that you can encourage Belhaven students in hospitality and other to think about a bigger path, and maybe they probably need to go to Ole Miss Law School, because Napoleonic Cold at LSU is a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah, only if you're going to practice in Louisiana.
Exactly right. All right. Well, thank you for this.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Consulting Kingdom. You've discovered valuable insights and strategies to enhance your consulting practice and to make a meaningful kingdom impact in your corner of the world. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. Your feedback helps us to reach more consultants like you, to experience the Kingdom Growth Engine software firsthand, and to stay connected. Follow us on social media and visit our website at kingdomgrowthengine.com. Until next time, continue practicing your consulting skills, offer your assistance generously, bring value wherever you go, and serve with the heart of a king. Cheers!